Alright, so starting off, anyone I look at today, no, I am not picking on you, nor am I picking you from the group saying, oh, you're a problem. These just were the easiest for me to look at. We're going to kind of go in a general order. I kind of want to go over general fight knowledge before we start in, then going over the instances of CDs, trying to figure out when the best time for those CDs are. Deaths, I want to go over kind of how to read over deaths, figure out where and how you died. Then I want to go over parsing using the cast bar up here. Right there. And then we'll kind of go over some more personal logs, try to figure out exactly where things are lining up. So, at any time you have a question, please ask. You can always just PM me if you don't want to ask verbally or don't want to interrupt, yada yada. Alright, so starting off more general knowledge, I want to look at Sire Denathrius. I think I already pulled up, yeah, there's R13. I will look at our damage taken. So this is kind of a useful tool for those of you looking for where you want to use personal defensives to kind of up your active time on mobs that are on the floor. So, oops. I want to specifically look, for example, at blood price. So you can see definite instances of about 1 minute hits here. From those instances, we can then look at a personal cooldown. Let's just go to a general one. Let's say, I don't know, here, Tulsa. And you can see, even though Blur is at a minute cooldown, decreasing the damage taken by 20%, never used within that window. And that's our largest damage taken window. Even after it, you can see from his log here, you can see that we're still taking a decent amount after that damage. So all of this is having to be healed by the healers and self-healed. It's a huge waste of a CD. On top of that, it's a huge waste of damage because you're having to keep yourself up. So you want to keep a close eye on these specific spikes. Now if we go back into Tulsa, you can see he did use it at the end of the fight, but again, that's a 1 minute cooldown. That's way wasted. Let's see someone kind of have a higher cooldown. Let's go say that. Survival of the fittest, so this is a 3 minute cooldown. And again, you can see huge disparity on the early time where we're taking a ton of damage. Again, we're coming back down from blood price. After we take blood price, we take that cleave where it drops the ads, and then it's another big burst of damage. So it would be very warranted for self cooldowns during that to up your time on the boss and up your time on the ads. Then if we look at, let's say, again, I'm not going to Talos just because I know kind of what I'm looking at for Demon Hunters, and we go to Elysian Decree, which is one of our largest CDs for group damage. So I know that it's being used on Echo of Sin, but you can see this time before the Echo of Sins are spawned. This means he's probably wasting a cast. So if, for example, I look at myself, and you can see I'm using it basically immediately. I see those Echoes of Sin drop, I immediately throw it. More than likely this is because... When are you using I-Beam, sir?
Sorry, really quick. Which fighter or which
So this
wipe are
is
we looking at?
wipe 13 of last
Okay,
night's fight. Or, well, this week's fight.
Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Right.
Our best,
Yeah.
I chose to do our best pull for these, just to make sure that we're seeing the best possible versions of ourselves.
Well, I just wanted to know which one we were doing so I could follow along.
Fair enough. So the reason I don't like, for example, the spell queuing is you can see from Elysian Decree, and I'll just go into myself for this. Thank you, Under. You can see that it activates after 2 seconds. So that's 2 seconds of just wasted DPS. So anything you're having to pre-queue, put down on the floor, Anything you want to precast on ads that is not targeted, you want to make sure those are already on the floor by the time those things arrive. Otherwise, it's just a waste of a cast trying to get that AoE out. Good example here is actually on Carry. You can see that he has this huge buildup on his initial cast here. And if I go into when he's casting his Celestial Alignment, it's basically on pull. He's getting ready for those ads to spawn, and the minute I hit Convoke, it's right in that window. So that's a
So basically what you're doing is you're checking like their peak damages by specific spells and what spells align in those windows. Am I getting that right?
correct, kind of. So the way I want to look at it, or I want to kind of look at this, is like, what are you hitting before those things hit, and then what are you hitting during them? So
Oh, okay.
for again, a good example is Carry here. If I click on this, you can see a green outline on Celestial Alignment. This means it's inactive, or it's an active use, so you can see when Celestial Alignment is hitting. You can see this blank spot, and that's because if I hit this button, it's then going to fill in that blank spot. So green means it's an active use, so it'll only show you the bar when it's an active use. So this will show you a bar where it is, and then I guess if I go into like Eclipse, it's probably going to show more. No, there's probably some window in there that I'm missing.
You're still highlighting Convoke and.
Well, I'm trying to look for what's in that in between, because basically it's trying to it's batching in whatever is being used in that. But yeah, that's the idea here. So I want to kind of get rid of these. Sadly, there's no easy way to reset these that I know of. So that's a huge wasted damage potential, is on the in-between ads. Anything that you want to hit before the ads or even during the ads, if it's not targeted, it should already be hit. It's a huge wasted potential. So for example, Cassini, I don't think you have any build up for it. You do not. So if I look at Beast Cleave, you can see didn't hit it at the beginning, all of a sudden ads spawn, and Beast Cleave is now going out at about 10 seconds. So he doesn't have any build up, so this is where all of his damage is in.
Wouldn't Wild Spirits be the thing to look at for Hunter? Or am I dumb?
Wild Spirits actually has an initial hit. You can see there for 25% of your attack power, and that's actually a fairly large hit. One of the few classes that would break that rule because it has an initial hit. Do we have a Destruction Warlock? We do not have a Destruction Warlock. What's another example of something like that? Oh, Adelis, where's your Flame Patch? So if I look at...
being target ores, maybe? To the right?
There we go. So you can see he's not even hitting it, and that's because Flame Strike does initial damage. So anything that does that initial damage, you of course want to hold, but I'm going to guess if I hit this Combustion outside of Flame Strike, he's already mid-combustion. Yeah, he's already mid-combustion. So he's already hit the Combustion beforehand, prepping it, and then hitting his main abilities on the ads. Kind of go over... blah blah blah. Oh, that's the other one I wanted to look at. It's actually on Mr. Shriekwing over here. So this is an early kill. It's merely to show this example off. So if I go into damage taken, I want to solely look at blind swipe. This is times we're taking blind swipe. You can see 3 casts, 1 cast. It's like, okay, what the hell's going on here? You then look at our damage taken per second. Not that much damage. It does build up after time, obviously, but this is a really quick way to look at spells specifically and see what's happening afterwards. So you can see it started at 18 seconds, going to about 28. You can see that damage is falling off. So there's really no point in completely avoiding it at all times, because there's a huge dip in damage. Obviously, it's melee, we don't like getting parried, but that's despite the point.
Blind swipe is the frontal cone attack, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Alright, and then I want to go into actually the replay feature here. So, taking in, this is not the right one, 13. And I can look at damage taken. I want to ignore this. Because this is actually, so whenever you see a spike like this, it looks really weird when you're reading it. Then you would go through and you're like, well, okay, well, that's take damage. It's like, well, not really. You then look at Follow the Unworthy, and it did 2.4 million. And I'm guessing, if I look at the time of this, it's about 2:45. I can go into deaths. I'm going to guess you died around, 2:56. So Follow the Unworthy is where that damage hike is. Anyway, going into more general things. So I can see spikes later in the fight at around 7:13, 8:42, and 9:12. So I want to then go into replay and say, okay, what the hell's happening during that? So let's go to 7:13. Pause that real fast to go kind of before 7:13.
Oh shit, this is so sick. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah, it's got a lot of tools in here.
What the fuck?
This is how we know if people are standing in bad.
Yep. So we can see from 7:02, we can see that the boss is right now on fever. He has 4 stacks, so the taunt swap is coming. No other mechanics are on the board yet. So I've just taunted the boss, or no, sorry, fever still has it. We just got knocked back. 3 people are now spawned with the puddle. Therilia, Pandawa, and Zanisha all have puddles. Puddles are going out. They're now being soaked. So I can see the draw-in effect. That's when he's doing the Hand of Destruction. He's now on me, by the way. So you're about to see a large bit burst damage. Take about 75% of my health, or 25% of my health every swing. Soaking puddles now.
It even has the little circles on the map too for the soaks. Is that what that red bit is?
Yep. So if I zoom in here.
Oh, sorry. No, I guess it was just on my end.
Yeah.
It looked like there was a red circle just above all the. Oh, so the blue circles are the soak mechanic then, I'm guessing?
Right.
Okay, cool.
So they're taking, right now, these guys are taking this additional Final Finesse. They're taking additional damage, which is what this is marking.
Right.
So I'll go back to Sire real fast. So you can see in the left-hand corner, there is a Hand of Destruction. This is where he just dropped Hand of Destruction when he dragged us in. It's about to explode, so it's on the map. Blah, blah, blah. I'm taking a ton of damage because I'm a failure, and you can see I don't have Demon Spikes up because I'm dumb. Okay, Taunt Swap's about to happen. I need to go about 8:13, I think is what I said. Yeah, there's our double soak mechanic. I'm gonna zoom out a bit so Remoria is doing her slashy. About to soak a side of the room. Burst us away. Pause here. So you can see their Final Finesse is about to come out. Final Finesse is now out, and here is actually one of our main issues that I've noticed. You can see these guys still have a pretty nasty dot. It's dealing about, well, based on the replay, this is when it's base 10 player. It always does the base 10 player whenever it's looking at dots or something happened to a player. So it's doing about 3k a second on top of soaking a puddle. That's a lot of damage for the healers to try to recover. These players probably should not be soaking. If they are, they probably should be in a immunity. So you can see double soaking, so they're soaking. New ones just spawned. So it's now on, looks like Therilia. Yeah, Therilia.
I think I got double tapped on this.
You are in Ksenia's right now. I think it was Ksenia that dropped it on. Yeah, Ksenia dropped it. You now have it. So coming in. And so you can see right here, there's a huge problem with an overlap. Can't overlap circles over existing explodey bubbles. So this would be marked as a big problem in when I'm re-looking at the replay. It probably should be back here or over here. Because I think I'm about to move the boss for a puddle. Fever just took it. I think burst away. So still have some of those dots out. Okay, dots have expired. New set spawning. Overlap again, but looks like it was recovered from. So you can kind of go through the replay in its totality and kind of read. Sadly, it doesn't show where the Ravage is already gone. So there's a Ravage right now, right here. I just know that from, I remember the fight. So I took him on the other side. There's the Hand of Destruction. I'm going to pause here.
It sadly also doesn't show Massacre.
Does not. It just shows the sword in the middle. And the reason I want to pause here is actually because this is where our main deaths came from. You can see big overlap here, an overlap here, just barely on Brielle, pretty big overlap on Xanareth. So these guys' position out here where Fever is, Talsa is, Andrea, before they actually drop, much better of a position. So this is kind of going to help you solve your positioning, and you can see now they're coming in to soak the puddles. Even the tanks are on them right now. So that's our replay feature, and you can use this for pretty much any boss. It'll track what boss is doing, it'll have its cast bar, any debuffs that are on the active tank. You can look down here and you can see everyone that's dead, it's grayed out, has a dot, or has a mark over their head. So if our add-ons mark people, it'll also show up on the tracker here. Even we marked ourselves square and triangle, so you can see we're both marked square and triangle. Makes it a little easier to track. The other one I wanted to point out for this fight.
Just like take a second to denote last spell used feature.
Sure. And the other big thing I wanted to point out was it this one? Blood Price. So right now he's in Blood Price. Sadly doesn't show us being lifted, but Blood Price, we got knocked away. I'm back on boss. About to do cleaves, and it shows you where the ads spawn. So you can kind of maximize, so you can see Ash isn't really maximizing his damage. If he was located here, he could have not only soaked this line that's about to come through the raid, but he could be hitting all these 4 ads right here. So that's a huge drop in damage for a Demon Hunter. Andrea's on 1. This could be handled by any of our range that are single target. So that's a lot of wasted damage right there. If I zoom in here, and I kind of see where everyone goes. So good, more wasted damage. You could be cleaving these two while it's on the boss. So these ads die slowly because we are trying to deal with them one by one. Moving through, double checking, making sure it goes through. So you see the Remornia. This means that the Ravage is coming out. I don't think it'll show. Yeah, it doesn't show the blood pool. So another spawn. Pause it here. I know that we did not hit Demon Hunter AoE because he's about to go into Demonize. If you have any spells that you're kind of waiting on, my suggestion would be wait until they land while you're casting your AoE, and then actually go in on set ads. Because, like, again, there's a big group of 3 right here. Talos is hitting this group of 2 for no reason. He should be hitting this group of 3. If I go over here, Adku has the line through him right now. So you can see 9 Hunters going right through there. So these guys are soaking. So once you see the soak go through, so Andrea, Talsa weren't helping soak. Something else you can maximize for your damage and for survivability is making sure you're dealing with the ads in the lines first. So this is just helping you maximize your positioning. You can use the replay tool and kind of play around with where you were on each pull, where the ads were, where the boss was, and you can really up your damage, making sure that you're in the right spot at every single moment. Any questions about your general fight knowledge? Anything you might want me to go over? Anything I need to hit on?
One thing you didn't point out about the replay feature is it's a last spell used feature, which is super.
When you die?
I mean, that's a good use case, but just in general, if you click on someone, you can see every spell they use. There's a little spell queue.
Yeah. Yep. I don't remember how to hit that up, to be honest.
Okay, so click on someone in the bottom right. Just click on a raid frame.
Right.
Alright, now start hitting play. Alright,
You
so
mean
you can
this?
see in the to the left, it'll queue up what spells are being used at any given time. So you can see the thing that's most useful for is to see if someone's using defensives at the right time.
My apologies.
When their health in particular drops. So if you're looking through a fight and you see someone's health just drop super low, you can see if they casted a defensive to try and prevent it.
Yeah, my apologies.
A lot easier than going through the damage taken.
So, for example, Demon Cleave, Spirit Bomb, blah blah blah. I actually want to show this off. So, right there. So you can see I've already thrown my Sigil Elysian Decree, which is my pre-hit. It's actually 1 second because I have a talent to make it 1 second. So you can see as soon as they spawned, I already had it down. It was already ready to explode the minute they hit. So my damage will go off right here, and I'm going into my next ability already. Anything else I didn't hit on? No? Alright.
Other than I know toward the end, I've got to make sure that I don't go running into the mirror because I'm running into the problem at the end of the fight where people are killing the ad and spawning the puddles just as I went through the door and couldn't move and got blown back into another mirror.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's a really good point because it shows the ad's health and where everybody's positioned in those phases.
Yep, so
I'm looking at 313. I think that's just as we dropped.
Yep. So right now I'm looking at about 430 inside. You can see all the ads' healths, where the boss is located. I'm currently going to get cleaved, so you can see I'm getting cleaved right here. You can see a problematic thing right behind me, as one of our demon hunters is about to take a large dot of damage. And hit goes off here. So if I now go click on said demon hunter, that's not what I wanted to hit. He has racking pain on him now. So you always want to make sure when you're looking through the replay feature, keep an eye on your debuffs. If you, for example, on this fight, see racking pain, that means either the tank mispositioned or you mispositioned. Right there, for example, the DPS would have mispositioned there, taking the racking pain as I was aiming at the ad. So as we're going through here, you can see a ranged is right here, a ranged right here, killing off this ad. We should get a pull in fairly soon, so another ad just dropped. You can see everyone moving slightly. Pull in. We're going across. Boss's teleport. We teleport back through. Alright, so I'm going to pause right here because this actually is a really good example. Anyone still on this platform is mispositioned right now. And I've seen this on several people, and only
unless they have, but if you have the what's that, slices through, you stay over there, right? Those three, and then they go through.
So the three that are getting targeted. So give me a second, I'll see who's exactly getting targeted. So it looks like these three are the targets. So it's Ksenia, Underrated, Adela. So yeah, those guys are correct. But the last two that we're through, the problem here is this guy's about to die. And you can see there's a giant clump of people right here that are just coming through there. So these three are now going to have to deal with that guy dying, puddles dropping, and it's going to drop right where they're coming out of. So being late is really bad on this fight specifically because that puddle's going to drop right where you're teleporting. So that guy just died, puddle dropped. I see that, I think Zane got hit there. I'd have to look through our damage taken, but I think he got hit into this wall. But again, a good tool to kind of make sure that you're in the right position, but you are correct. Yeah, Underrated, Adelis, and Pandala did have the Carnage. So those guys
But
were
that's a good
incorrect.
point. I mean, if we're going through the portal, late, it's going to drop it where we are when that thing dies. So you've got them people coming through the portal, stepping right on those things. So
Right.
yeah,
This guy's got
understood.
24k, and we're getting two more people through the portal last second. That's very dangerous. The minute you don't see Carnage buff, you should be moving through that portal, just making sure you're in the correct position. You can see already Seize is already back on it. Therilia looks like he's about to turn onto it. Yeah, he immediately turned over to it. I come through with Denathrius. So even if the tank is mispositioned, for example, if I was still over here like an idiot, if you're doing the correct positioning, then you can blame it on the tank, because then the tank is being stupid. So one just died. We're all moving slightly.
That's another neat feature.
Coming in.
Is that you can click onto a mob and see there's been that particular mob's damage taken.
Yeah. So this one, pretty much just Demon Hunters. If I look at the other one...
Which also means...
So yeah, they were not on the
correct
correct
problem.
one.
There's no Demon Hunter damage there. That thing's not...
That's not
smart.
taking additional damage, no. This is, I think, before we made we made sure that Demon Hunters were on the Skull ad, or on the ad over here.
Yeah,
So they went to
before
X
the
first.
Explanation happened.
Yeah.
Um,
I believe our explanation happened. So, for example, if I look at, let's hope that it's there on 16.
but another thing you can do with that is see who killed them if maybe you're in a massacre and you weren't supposed to kill them. See whose damage just went up.
Fight's glitching out a little bit. 1 second, I'm gonna refresh my page. Sadly, Warcraft Logs is not always the most reliable of sites. Fucking ads. Blah blah blah. There we go. It faced correctly there. So we're up here. If I go back. So yeah, you can see they're on the correct ad this time around. Talsa, Underrated, Therilia, C's doing the correct ad, and Ash marked this one. So this ad's ready to start taking damage. This guy's already getting killed. I would consider Ash being in the wrong place here. Demon Hunters for this fight are ranged, or at least counted on the ranged group for Kobalists. It's kind of a pain in the ass to lower your damage in order to get the correct place. However, obviously we're trying to kill the ads off to lower the amount of stacks of Crimson Chorus going out. I mean, this ad's already got, surprisingly, Therilia's top damage, but that doesn't...
I can't control Convoke.
Yeah, not really a surprise there. So if I look at more at this ad's damage, I know Therilia is currently targeting that dead Kobolist. He's now targeting the other Kobolist, so he's over here. Even though he's top damage, he's over here. That's also kind of a problem. If I look through all of our damage, that means this guy wasn't getting tagged with pretty much anything. Fever is our second most damage. We should be trying to spread out at least our initial ad. Let's see, when did that die? So that died right here. When did this guy die? I want this guy. Thank you. So he's dead 1350 or 1315. And this guy's still at 70%. So go on through the fight. So we take in another. There's death. 1315 to 322. These ads obviously are dying very quickly because it's the first time we've done those ads. The second ones die a little slower, but you can see that our split of damage is definitely not great here. It's not an immediate swap for people. We want to make sure that we're not hitting like Denathrius as much with our main hits. Again, I'm going to have to excuse people like Zanisha and why is my brain being dumb? Zanisha and Andrea, because they have constant cleave. So you have to do it by a class basis. Anything else I should hit on for the general point?
I guess I'm still like, I guess what I'm, maybe this will get to the finer point, but I'm trying to, as soon as Denathrius says go through the window, I'm automatically just, hitting my roll to get the heck out of there. And I'm realizing that that's probably too soon because while I'm going through the window, the ad is dying. And that's why. So I should be, I guess I'm trying to figure out in that time when Denathrius gives the warning, hey, go through the mirror, how much time do I have to get out of there?
Let's see when Carnage casts. So for example, on our first one, our first go through mirror, Remornia is still there. Where's our first go through mirror? So he's getting up, we're pulled in right here, we're going through the mirror. So everyone's through the mirror. When does there? So you can see there that it's starting to mark. So right now, I believe it's. So if I'm gotta look in closer. So right now, Tulsa is marked. This is when you can be sure you can get back through the mirror. So all marks are now allocated. So Tulsa and Adku right now have to stay. So at this point, you could be leaving. So that is roughly 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds.
No, Andrea, are you asking more so about when the ad dies and when you should be moving through the mirror so you don't get hit by the swirly? Or are you asking about?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's saying then that she's going through the mirror too soon is what I was getting.
Yeah, I'm assuming she's meaning like when we initially get pulled in before we have to run through the mirror and the ad dies, how long does she have to wait to drop a puddle on the bad side instead of the good side?
That is really dependent, so give me a second. It is really dependent on this ad right here for the first phase, or for our first pull-in. If this one is exceedingly low, like we're talking 4%, and we get pulled in, actually I'd say even lower, probably like 2 to 3, you're going to spawn a puddle. So you need to wait probably... What is the... There you are. So Hand of Destruction is going off here. Hand of Destruction, I believe, is a 5-second cast. I'll go and check that real fast. Where are you? Abilities. Blood Sacrifice. I don't know why my brain is being stupid today. So I'm gonna have to look this up, I think. So it's Hand of Destruction. So however long Hand of Destruction is from when it pulls you in to when it explodes. So we can actually test that on the replay. So I don't care about the glitch right now. So we're pulled in right here. So this is right now 20 seconds in the fight. So we're at 420 right now. Going through the mirror. Hand popped up. So it's about to explode. So you have about 7 seconds, it looks like, to get the heck out. So it looks like it's about a 10-second cast. Because I believe when it ticks over... So it's still active. I don't know why it's still active. It shouldn't be active. So it looks like about 7 to 10 seconds you have to just get through the mirror. Making sure you're not taking the additional damage.
I don't know if that helped answer your question enough.
Yeah, I guess I'll do my best to watch when the one ad. But the problem is when it's over on that platform, it's hard to.
I mean, the real issue we're running into there is that people are blowing up the ads at the wrong time.
You are correct.
They're either not bursting when they can, or when people are calling for stopping DPS on ads, people are continuing to DPS, and it causes the ads to die at very inopportune times.
Right. So for example, this pull-in that I'm seeing happen right here, this ad's still at 15%. So this pull-in, go to the other side, is going to still be safe. The problem comes in when the ad hits around 5% and we're about to get a Hand of Destruction. That either needs to be a call for a burn, which around 5% I would say just burn it, give it a few seconds, go through. Because at that point the puddles will all be grouped wherever the Denathrius spawn was. And if it's this high, this should be a stop. This should be a complete and total stop. 10 through, well, probably 7 through however high, probably should be a complete stop in DPS. Go through your mirror, ignore that ad for a second, let it explode, go back through, make sure everyone is through, then blow it up, including the guys with Ravage. So, for example, if I go through this one, we're going through right now. That one was a bad example. I need another pull in. So we're getting pulled in right here. Let's see if this is the good place. So these guys spawned, blah blah blah. Going through, pull in, other side. Let's see if this one has the Ravage cast over it. Okay, Ravage cast. So we're going back through. So if this guy, for example, was at 5%, this would be a no-touch situation. These three still have to make it through. Also, again, incorrect positioning, you should be already through. But these three should always make it through before this guy dies. Otherwise, we're spawning, I mean, hell, if I look at right here, this is the entrance to that portal, so he just teleported. He's about to come in. So they're teleporting right here. So everyone in front of them, because they're coming through, would be a huge problem. So it's making sure we call that hold and everyone's obeying that hold. Does that more or less answer your question, Andrea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and that's one of the here. I'm dead.
Yeah, it's not your fault for you getting caught from that. It's the other DPS fault for killing it before you're coming back through with Carnage.
Yeah.
So again, when I go over logs, I make sure I specify like when things are happening and who's doing them. You have no control over when that ad dies. You're on the other side of the map. It's impossible for you to have any control there.
Yeah.
All right. Then we're going to move on, if no one else has any more questions, and look up kind of CD usage, both DPS, healing, and tank. This is another log I want to look at later. I'm going to go back into our best pull here, because this actually kind of gives me my point. So if I look at our damage done, let's look at an easy one as meta. So Ash, you look like you did the best out of us. So when is he metaing? So I want to ignore any time he's I-beaming into meta. So if I see a short bar, that means he's not true meta. So like all of these, this is not true meta. This is true meta right through here. So I already know what he's doing. He's coming back down off of Blood Price and going into meta. This is not a true meta. He's going in between. This is a true meta. So I'm wanting to look around what's happening at. So if you true metaing are around 10 or about 1 minute, it'll be up by 4 minutes in. So I want to look at here. So this is 424. And seeing if he's maximizing his uptime on meta. So about 416 is what I'm going to go for. Go to Ash. We're coming back through. Looking for a true meta. Kobolist just spawned. Elysian Decree. I-Beam, so he's not in true meta yet. You can see he's activated meta. Okay, so he didn't activate true meta. I'm looking for true meta cast. Well, I can just do it this way.
So you would also need to have a general understanding of, every class if you're going to do like an overview of this.
Correct.
I know that with Demon Hunters, there's a talent that once you use I-Beam, you go into meta for a little bit or something like that.
It's demonic.
Yeah.
Well, here, actually, let me do it even better. So I can actually do it right here. So Bestial Wrath, the Hunter one. This is when you do your most damage. So you can see first ad spawned, Bestial Wrath. Second wave spawns at around 1 minute, because this is downtime. Once again, Bestial Wrath. 3 minutes, we're coming back in, dealing with Kobalists, Bestial Wrath. So I know he's maximizing his Bestial Wrath right here. Every single time I'm seeing Kobalists start spawning, because you can see on his target things, it says Sir Denathrius and then Kobalists. So he's on Kobalist right now. In fact, he's specifically targeting Kobalists.
Actually, that's a good thing. So that is something that came to my mind as I was looking over various stuff last week, was because again, I'm just now getting into this somewhat semi-hardcore, but maximizing burst windows is not something I was doing very well, right? And the question is, if you go in and look at Atku, I'm sure it looks very different. The question is, should I be holding Bestial Wrath? Yeah, this was a bad one.
So let me go to one you didn't.
Should I be holding Bestial Wrath to maximize the burst windows?
I'm glad you asked, actually, because you can use another site for that.
Absolutely not. Unless you're within about 15 seconds of Wild Spirits coming up, you don't save it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're within 15 seconds of Wild Spirits, save it. But if you're outside of that window, you don't save Bestial Wrath. Unless you know you're in a phase where you're not going to get DPS in.
Actually, this will be helpful for both of you then. There is one time you save it. So if I'm looking at Sir Denathrius, for example...
Wow, that's a bad one.
Ksenia, where are you? Well, this is our
Ksenia is like really good.
Yeah, so a good example of this is this efficiency right here versus
I've never been able to figure out exactly what that CDR efficiency is.
So this CDR efficiency essentially is making sure that this one right here, so average focus, so you can see he's going into average with an average focus of 92 every single time he's hitting Bestial Wrath. And it's also counting where you are using Kill Command and where you're using Barb Shot. So if you have a lower number on Kill Command, it's going to lower your efficiency right here. Kill Command is your main damage ability. The other thing that it will lower is actually this 3-stack uptime. What you can do with both of the talents you're running, I checked beforehand, is if you want to wait for 1 stack of Frenzy, at least. You 1 stack of Frenzy, you go into Bestial Wrath, you'll get 2 immediate casts of Barbed Shot, even though you have 0 starting. You Bestial Wrath, you'll get 2 more, and you can immediately go into 3 stacks of Frenzy. That's an easy way to get 3 stacks of Frenzy just with 1 cast of Bestial Wrath. To make sure that during Bestial Wrath, you have all 3 stacks of Frenzy. Now, it might fall off during it, but...
I don't do a great job at keeping track of it. But yeah, I usually try if I know... That'll be another time I do say Bestial Wrath. If I know Frenzy, if Barb Shot's about to come off cooldown, if Barb Shot is like under 3 seconds from coming off cooldown, I'll save for that charge of Barb Shot before I use Bestial Wrath so I can get the 3 stacks of Frenzy.
Right.
That's the other time I said Bestial Wrath.
So, again, other things that this really helpful tool. I always use WoW Analyzer. It's really useful. It's not as updated right now because we just had an update and it's still working on said update, but it does show some general things like your kill command percentage. So this means you had an uptime of kill command where you could have hit it and didn't. And uptime of Bestial Wrath. This one I could somewhat ignore for hunters. So if I go into, for example, Carry, you're going to be my example. And I look at stuff like, actually, there's an even better one. Underrated, you asked. So I look at efficiency for his cooldown. You can see he's pretty much always making sure that big cooldown is going off when it needs to. Every single rotation, he's making sure he's going into it. Not as good on Misery, but every single time Dark Glare comes up, he's ready. Other things for dot-based classes. All of these uptimes should be damn near 90 to 100%. If you have any uptime below that percentage, minus ones that come off, for example, Haunt can somewhat glitch this program. If you refresh, sometimes it doesn't like to do that because it's a cast time. But all of these, like an 80% right here, 86 here, Unstable Affliction at 61, 78% here. So it's for any dot-based classes, these need to be as high as you can.
Now for Sire though, it may not be the best one because of the fact that we have to stop doing damage at times.
Except dots. Dots
Okay.
you have no control over, and especially for someone like a Warlock, that is your main soul shard generator. You cannot stop Agony. Agony will be a low tick. Now, mind you, when he's stopping damage, obviously he's not going to use something like, what is their spender? Malefic something?
What site?
Malefic Rapture.
Yeah, there you go. So they're not going to use Malefic Rapture, which is their highest damage ability, but they're going to keep their dots up because that's where they're starting to keep their damage, and as well as they're keeping their soul shard generation up. Same with, for example, hunters. I don't expect you to pull back your beasts. That would be ridiculous. I do expect you, however, if we're, say, going in for a fight and it's like, and the raid leader says, hey, stop damage on it, you're not going to hit something like Kill Command. You might hit Kill Command on then the boss to make sure you're still doing damage, but you're not going to hit Kill Command on the ad. So it's stuff like that can kind of keep your DPS up while making sure you're obeying the raid leader's wants and desires.
So real quick for this specific example for the dot uptime, this would include all of like the ads, the boss, and everything, right? So even if you don't keep 100% uptime on the ads, for example, but you do on the boss, would that?
It does affect it.
How does that show?
It does affect it. So if I go into, for example, back to not this one, this one. So if I go into the log that I have from this, so underrated, and I go into his Agony, for example, so you can see there's these times of weird spacing, and it's just like, well, that's kind of weird. Well, that's because if I then click on something like the Kobalists, there's some of them. Then I go click on, for example, Remoria, there's some of them that's missing. So that's where this whole place is from. Dot classes are kind of weird. So ads, here's that one. And it's not being shown right there.
I see. So basically, you switch back and forth between Sire and other targets.
Right.
Okay.
And also, what's really useful is you can actually see these bars. All of these bars are different spells. So I can see that green is his Unstable Affliction. I can see it fell right here. I can see it fell right here. I also know this is when we're running into the boss. Obviously, it fell toward the end of the fight because he's dead. So that's also really useful tool. Excuse me. But you can see that you can be slightly more efficient. Like all dots are falling here. You can redot the boss before we fall. I'm gonna guess if I look at the ads, I'm gonna guess you didn't have a whole lot of uptime on that. Yeah, because you can see there's a whole fall right here.
That could be when the
4
ad
minutes.
dies, right?
And that's when we go into
Or
here.
when you're running through the mirror.
Oh, yeah. And then you go to the replay and you can see what's going on.
Yep,
right?
so 4 minutes in, so I can see all the ads are dead. So if I know that from the replay, I know all ads are dead. So what are you doing on boss then on 4 minutes? So then I go into damage done. Like, all right, what did you do in 4 minutes? Well, if I look then at Sire Denathrius, I bet you that's where that's from. Yep, all Sire Denathrius. So you can kind of go back and forth from replay. You can go back and forth from here to figure out where ads are dying. But again, I can go through, even here, you can see their uptimes are the same as on WoW Analyzer. 78% here, 68 right here, or 86 right here. This is actually probably where you want to hit for a Warlock, is this 68%, because it's also counting the dead time. But then we go to like Unstable Affliction here. I can kind of highlight it. And you can see it definitely fell here, definitely fell here. Got really close to falling here. So it's stuff like that that will really up damage for basically no cost. It's just a maintenance. Again, I can show that through Carry here, which I believe he has a very good uptime on his dots. Yeah, on the boss, he has almost 100% uptime on boss. So he is making sure his dots are always running on boss. This only counts, so I should have prefaced that. So if I look at underrated here. So this, on the boss, this is specifically counting only on the boss. I should have prefaced that. Only on Sire Denathrius. So this means you're probably focusing too much on making sure the ads have your dots and you're not spreading your time. For example, if an ad already has Agony and it's not quite all the way upticked, I can also see wasted some soul shards here, but that's despite the point. You never want to make sure your dots, even while you're working on ads, your dots always have to maintain on the boss. If you ever lose dots on the boss, again, for like a Warlock, Agony has to tick back up. Shadow Corruption has to go through. You have to recast Unstable Affliction again, Haunt again, Siphon.
Is only good on one target.
Right, but
so if the focus is the ad, you put it on the priority target.
Correct. But then you can subsidize that with same thing with Siphon Life. And that's only a 78. Your goal here is to make sure that your ones that aren't targeted, Corruption, Siphon Life, Haunt is targeted. Is this one targeted? I believe it is. Yeah, technically it's
learning
targeted.
in here?
Hi there.
Yeah, we're learning.
Doing the best I can.
Good. Nice.
So yeah, the Siphon Life, Corruption, all these dots, these are non-targeted dots, Agony. These should be probably approaching, again, Carry's numbers, which are around 95. I believe that he's even maintaining them through ads, making sure that they continue to hit. So that'll kind of up our damage for the boss, is if every dot classes was also making sure that they're meh dots, the ones that are just have to refresh them, are making sure they're still ticking on the boss. Then if I go to look at someone like, who doesn't have a tick? Tanisha. Again, you're going to have to ignore some of these, because obviously if he's working on ads, he's not touching the boss. Not happening. So you can see, again, 55%, 42, and you're like, okay, what the hell? Alright, well, let's go back through the log. And if I look at where his damage is allocated during those times, and I look at specifically Kobalists, you can see During these times, he's doing 0 damage basically to the boss, because Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, everything might be turned away from the boss, so he's focusing the boss. So I have to discount this entire section of time where he's only on ads. But for, again, dot class, I have to bring in the dots, making sure that those dots are on target at all times.
So is there a way to, because I know that there's like an uptime thing for the logs, like if you look like without picking a specific person, there's like the
Right here.
active, sorry, yeah. So is there a way to do like look at active on a specific target? So like if you pick the Kobalists and like is there a way to see like the activity? Oh wait, no, never mind. I figured it out. I'm stupid. So you look at those windows of like let's say a minute or two for the Kobalist, and then is there a way to like subtract that from something to get to the uptime on Denathrius from WoW Analyzer? Like how do you specifically differentiate the missing stuff because it's a multi-target fight?
This is where a little bit of math comes in. I know people don't
Okay.
really like that, but so I would have to subtract, so from 522, so this is a full minute. This is, I know we're leaping through mirrors right here, so he's prepping mirrors. I can't say too much. I bet you if I added Denathrius, there's Denathrius cast right through here. So I'd have to subtract all of this time from here to here, and this is when we're on Denathrius because all ads are dead for melee. From here to here, I would subtract all of that time away from the boss for a melee just because you're not hitting the boss. It's not happening. Even for the ads here, so if I go and look at our Echoes of Sin here, all of this is no boss damage. So his Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, this is going to be turned away from the boss most of the time if he doesn't get a lucky spawn on them. His Earth Spirit here, all of this is going into ads. So all of this time is also times that he's not targeting Denathrius. So obviously his core abilities as often as possible is not going to go into the boss. So it's not going to be counted here.
WoW Analyzer is really good at giving you information about your rotation in a vacuum.
Right.
Yeah.
If you could always be on the boss, and I've seen when people are on the boss, and these numbers are like 80, 90, it's like, yeah, you're on the boss. When ad fights come in, you're like 50%, you're like, yeah, that's normal.
I never caught that this was only on the boss, man, because I would get numbers and go, my God, I know it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, so
now I know why it drops sometimes.
yeah, for example, if I go into for a
You
tank.
look at those numbers just like without any context, it looks like you had your thumb up your ass for 80% of the fight.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, like I'm on a tank, so I'm always targeting a boss. I'm always on the boss, and you can see I have an 82% or an 87% on Fracture. Why? Because I'm always hitting a boss. I'm not hitting the ads.
And then the probably with the 80% as well, would that not count when you're tanking Ramonia?
Technically, she is counted under Denathrius. They share a health pool. They don't share a health pool. The damage you do into Ramonia also does into Denathrius last time I checked.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I heard. Yeah.
So it will count during this. And other things for tanks while I'm looking at mine. Ignore any time it wants you to use defensives. Please ignore these numbers. They're not useful.
Yeah, it's good for stuff where like you can see like you could see like shield block uptime versus potential uptime. It's kind of always it's useful to look for your
highest
manage
potential
resources properly, or like your defensive abilities, where it's like you didn't use your defensive ability 4 times you could have.
I was saving that.
And sometimes it's worth knowing that you want to save it, but it's also worth being used too, right? Like if you're sitting on it the whole fight and you could have used it in one of those really nasty, shattered panes or something like that, or there's the really awful times we get a massacre, a crescendo overlap, and you're still sitting on your defensive, it's like I got to use this. Like this is a good time, as good as any time to be using it. I find that when I go through, it doesn't. I think prop paladin works. I know warrior doesn't work
Well,
on
it's
WoW Analyzer.
it's the same thing we went over earlier tonight was the blur example. If you're not using that cooldown every minute or figuring out kind of when I want to use it within that minute and a half at max, there's a problem because you're not maximizing your DPS. If you can take an ability even slightly less, you can up your time on boss.
Yeah, and there's on Denathrius in particular, there are times when you would want to hold cooldowns, whether they're offensive or defensive. Like there are points where, in phase 1, where like damage doesn't really matter. We're basically biding time until he casts. And then there are times in phase 1 where we've got ads out that we want to blow up, that those cooldowns are worth using, both again offensive and defensively, because we're taking a lot of damage then and we want to burn them down ASAP. And that's the kind of stuff that WoW Analyzer misses. But it's nice to, what's cool about WoW Analyzers, when you know sort of like what it doesn't know, it becomes a really valuable tool.
There we go.
Yeah, I think what I found interesting that I found on WoW Analyzer just recently is when you look at your death, it'll show you all the stuff that was up, and I'll look at something and go, well, shit farm, man, I had like everything up and all potions and didn't even do anything about it.
Yeah.
Another
for
example
sure.
here is on, actually I'm checking out Xanaret. Oh, this is on Shriekwing. That is not correct. That is not the log I want you to analyze, sir. Do this one. So if I'm looking at Shriek here, I look at, go to Riel, I guess. Xanareth wasn't here during this fight. So I'm looking through her big healing cooldowns. It's like, oh, Aura Mastery is a problem. It's like, no, not really. It's being used when we're told. Rule of Law is a problem. Not really. We're all very close. No reason to use Rule of Law. Avenging Wrath is a problem. No, not really. So you kind of got to pick and choose.
Like it saves you having to dig through Warcraft logs to find that you had 51% uptime. Like you can dig through it and get that information. But it's just about understanding it. Rather, understanding, like I said, once you know what it doesn't tell you.
Alright. Moving a little bit forward here.
I'd say the best way to look at WoW Analyzer is as potential problems, and then use Warcraft logs to verify.
Yeah.
I want to go into Sludgy Boy here. Alright. So, I actually wanted to specifically look at myself for this, because I did a fairly good job of it when we did Sludgy Boy. So you can see there's some obvious damage spikes here. So there's a huge damage spike at 1 minute. I know this just because I analyzed my own logs from Sludge Fist when we weren't killing him, and I know when his damage comes out. So this is a roar right here. This is another roar. This is another roar. This is another roar. So I'm like, alright, what am I using for roar? If I click on my blur, oh, my blur is being used during roar every single time. So that's just me knowing, hey, this is when the most damage is coming out. Healers need my help to make sure I can stay on boss. I don't have to, drink a potion or whatever. I can instead hit blur, making sure I take much less damage and stay on target while I'm doing it. And you'll notice if you hit your defensives correctly, you'll take less damage. You're not looking at your health bar anymore, making sure that you have those timings down pat. Good example.
So it's more like for this specific example, it's more of knowing when the boss is going to be using an ability that you're going to be kind of watching instead of your health bar. So you look, oh, okay, Roar's coming up in, 5 seconds. I'm going to get ready to use my defensive now instead of having to stare at your health bar and be like, oh my god, what the fuck do I do?
Right, and then you're not hitting, for example, a monk. You're not hitting Vivify. You're not hitting Exhilaration. You're not hitting these bigger self cooldowns to make sure that you're spacing them out enough that you can stay on target. I know as a demon hunter, if I'm worrying about my health, I'm hitting other buttons to keep myself alive. Elysian Circle. I'm hitting Blur. I'm hitting my can't be attacked, can't take damage ability. I'm hitting all these extra buttons, and I'm not doing damage. Instead, I just hit blur, making sure I can stay on target.
If you want an example of that might show up in our Denathrius, you can look at Swiftman's usage.
I can see this is damage taken. Damage healing. If I look at your Swiftman, like he asked, so you can see this is actually on our 2 big bursts. I actually know exactly where these are. This is when he's soaking the first time, and this is during when we were wiping, and we were having the huge problem. So he's hitting them, for example, on his example, Swiftman, exactly when he's taking the most damage. Instead of doing any damage to the boss, he's like, no, screw it. I'm standing in this circle, making sure it's not killing the rest of the group. I'm healing myself, making sure he's helping the healers stay on target. Because tanks are taking 35% of their bar every second.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously too much damage in that phase.
He hits the tanks super hard. He doesn't hit as hard as not as hard as Sludge Fist, but he's got so much other stuff going on, right? Like Sludge Fist just hits hard.
Those windows, by the way, the only reason I stopped using Swiftman at the end of those windows is because I fucking ran out of mana.
Alright.
So I'm like, okay, back to DPSing, I guess. Good luck, everybody else.
Back to here, then. Other thing I want to kind of double check with people, because I know a lot of people look at paladins or look at, of course, Caddy, or look at druids and like, oh, you have a lot of overhealing, or oh, you have, you're only pulling 50 here. Why can't we get more healing? It's like, well, that's nice, but if I go into here, oh, no, not that. This, you can see there's a lot of absorbed healing right here. Now, that's actually not a problem. If you then go into your beacon targets, Xanaret's obviously beaconing Fever. You can see there's a giant absorb pool, and Brielle's obviously beaconing me. And if we're not specifically trying to raise their numbers and trying to stay alive ourselves, paladins are going to look a little weak, as long as they're doing what they're supposed to. Similar effect to, for example, dot healers. You're going to see a lot of overhealing. So as a healer, you also obviously want to keep your overhealing low-ish. For a paladin, I would say safety is below 30%. For a druid, around 25 is probably where you want to sit, like as your highest. So like Pad right through here has a little bit high, but I can pretty much excuse it on this fight because of how much overhealing he has on tanks. So you can see there's a very large overhealing bar on both myself and Fever, because there's a lot of incoming damage on us. So whenever you're setting up your CDs, you're wanting to do it around the boss's mechanics. So for Denathrius, if I'm thinking of boss mechanics, I'm thinking Echo of Sin. Anything hit with an Echo of Sin should be some sort of a cooldown. So, for example, Demon Hunters, Demon Eyes, Elysian Decree. Monks are hitting Juen, what is it?
Whirling Dragon Punch.
Whirling Dragon Punch.
Spending
Earth.
Ring Kick.
What is it? Earth, Wind, Fire?
Storm, Earth, and Fire.
Thank you. And mages, they're going into their combustion window.
Combustion?
So it's making sure that you're using your cooldowns exactly when you want them. So you can kind of go through your abilities. So, for example, screw it, Thrillia. When are you hitting this? And when are you hitting this? So your main cooldowns, Convoke and Celestial Alignment. When are you hitting Celestial Alignment? Well, if I look through, Kobalists right here. Echo of Sin, I'm pretty sure. Actually, Denathrius. Actually, yeah, you switched off of Echo of Sin because it's not single target.
Only casts one multi-target ability, and that's just Starfall. I hit it right before they come out, So I'm coming out of Convoke right as the ads are spawned. So I've done the maximum single target damage to Denathrius, and then I'm fully empowered to cast Starfire on the ads.
Okay, well, again, that's class knowledge for boss, but then you can see, so 3 minutes, so you can see a whole section right here where he could potentially be hitting a cooldown. This is probably a missing part on his bars because we just got to like later in the fight. So here's another place where he could be hitting it because it would actually line up with our Lust window right in here. That's just being newer to the fight at the end. So that's another potential place, for example, for Carry to know, hey, this is another place I can pick up some damage. Ksenia, again, I don't know why it's still on that. Bestial Wrath. You can see pretty much Kobalists. This is a Kobalists. Yep. Echo of Sins, and then just basically on Denathrius through the rest of this fight right here. So it's making sure you're maximizing those cooldowns within our burst windows. So I would say this is a bit of a mistake, for example, for a hunter, because you're leaving. This is when he's approaching about 20%, 30%-ish. This is when he's leaving, and we're getting in Lust. I can see you have Bestial Wrath on both sides of the Lust, but nothing in the Lust. That's pretty large missed damage opportunity. But again, it's one of those things of being newer into the later part of the fight. Go away. Stop it. Clicking on too many things at once. What's another one? Just to kind of drive... Oh, underrated, actually, you asked. So, Dark Glare. So right here, it might have been useful to hold to the Dark Glare. What are you using it on? Looks like you're using it on Denathrius. So let's do Dark Glare Misery. Yeah, you're just completely on Sire Denathrius right now, so it might have been worthwhile for you to instead hold it, because you're using it at the correct times here, because this is when we're falling. We just got on ads, in between time. This is just on Denathrius. Yeah, I don't know how Denathrius selected. And about a minute later, we're lusting. So if you instead waited another minute, you might have been able to eke out a lot more damage.
So just so I'm reading this correctly, the big gray bars in between are damage or cooldowns that don't apply to Dark Glare in this scenario, right?
That'll be either on its travel time. So, for example, if I don't look at Denathrius himself, I go to Kobalists. That might not really.
Okay, I think I see.
So yeah, there's an in-between bar here. I'm not sure these bars are supposed to be here because I can still see ticks going off, but this is when he's not actively casting them.
Okay.
So that would be when I'm running from the boss to the ranged ads.
Right. Running from boss, or even when he's doing the pull-in. It could also be during the pull-in where he's not actively using his abilities.
Right. Okay.
So again, if he just held off a little bit longer, got into the Lust window, that would have been way better for as a Warlock for making sure that he's increasing his Soul Shard amount and getting off more Malefic Raptures.
I think he was dead at that point, though.
I believe so too, but I wouldn't have been up even then.
He died.
No, it wouldn't have been up.
No.
Yeah.
Timing right when
No,
we're lusting in phase 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So especially with this log, because this is kind of our most complete log, we almost down the fight here. I would suggest everyone pretty much use this log, unless you died, obviously, in which case you can use this 19% we have on 16. Where you can kind of gauge the fight and be like, alright, this is when I want to use my cooldown. So, Adelis, when do you use Combustion? I'm going to guess every minute. Yeah, you can see he's leading right into Combustion. He actually held it off. Looks like he held off for about 10 seconds, maybe a little less, in order to make sure that Combustion window was inside Lust window. So it's making sure you know when things are happening and why it's happening.
Yeah.
Telsa, I think I'll see the same story here. Meta. Yeah, much of the same story here. He's actually true combustion or true meta right here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. The way I know that is a long string of being in meta. like unusually long, so he probably went I-beams. After he finished I-beams, went straight back into meta and then continued meta.
Yeah.
So he was a little early on meta, because you can see he's dropping off right here.
Yeah.
But this is actually a decent spread. Alright. And the last thing I want to kind of go over is actually deaths. Because this can get a little confusing. I'm obviously going to ignore the one at the top. But the Unworthy is a one-shot, no matter what. So, going through, anytime I see Crescendo, that means someone got knocked off.
Yep, I got knocked off early
So,
in phase 2.
319, so then we go to here and see what happened on 319.
This may have been the one where I got my timing confused and I thought we were ahead of where we were and I got stuck in a corner and it hit me.
Yeah, so here
You need
you
to run-
are.
Run it back so it resets the map.
Everyone's
It's got the wrong
moving,
map right now.
and there's your knockoff. Yeah, I'm
So
trying
that
to.
might actually be relevant on a death.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
No, and you have to like play through the transition is what I've found. I was looking at this.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
So at Q, you're right here. So it's when this one dies. So dead
Yeah, I remember this one.
and knocked off.
And everybody's moving, so I'm guessing that's during a massacre as well.
Well, give me a second here. Where is
I
Remornia?
I
No,
don't
actually might not be
think
because it
so.
looks at the very start.
No.
Yeah,
I
Ramonia is.
I remember this one. I looked down and the shit was under me and I was like, okay, I've reacted too late.
Yep, that's exactly what happened because
It's like, oh, this is
one
gonna
that
be
catches
bad,
you.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Dead.
And when I
Yeah,
went,
that one
when I
dies.
went flying, I
Three.
went, oh shit.
Dead.
Disengage is your friend.
Yep.
We've all been there.
Yeah,
One thing
it's
I didn't
one,
realize
it's one of
until going-
those where at every once in a while when too much gets going on, I just get lost and I'm like, I don't know what the hell button to hit.
I didn't realize this, and this is embarrassing, but I didn't realize this until yesterday. Looking over the logs, the puddle left behind from Impale, and I believe also from being hit by Crescendo, but for sure the Impale puddle increases your damage taken by all sources by 50%.
Oh.
And so if that puddle, if you happen to like walk through a puddle briefly to move somewhere to get into the right position, the AoE that those 4 casters are doing, you take 50% increased damage from, which is part of the reason I think a handful of times going through the Deathlog, you see that as a contributing factor. Just because I know people are trying to move to the right side to drop those impales, and we won't really want to drop them like right on the edge of the platform to make as much room to move as possible. But I didn't realize that as people were moving, I just thought they did damage in general, but they also give you a damage taken debuff.
Alright. Alright, and so we know why AdQ here, and then it's just we go lower, it's like, alright, well, you know, it sucks to lose a DPS, but we gotta continue the fight. Xanareth then died at 848 right here, and sadly I believe I was his beacon target at the time.
No, it's always fever.
Okay.
I've always got fever.
So 848. Of
And
course,
Fever's always
it
dying,
glitched.
so he's
Oh,
probably
there you go.
healing me at some point. Because I can't play. I've been playing my warrior like such absolute dog shit. The last like two raid weeks. It's awful.
So 848. We're looking at Xanareth here. So Zan's looking this way. He's looking at boss. Circles are about to drop, and dead.
So I got hit with an overlap is what I'm guessing there.
So you're right now in between two. So yeah, Ksenia's and Underrated, they're just about to drop their puddles,
Yeah.
and you're right in the center. You can see everybody else is pretty much stacked toward the edge, and you just got caught in the center.
Yeah.
My suggestion, especially as a paladin, is instead to run this way, away from the Hand of Destruction, and just run straight to Denathrius, wait for puddles, and then run back in.
Yeah, it's just I was trying to do like stay close was my thought process there. So yeah, I think
It's also a useful time for rule of law to make sure your aura's still hitting us, your mastery's still hitting us.
Yeah. Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
So, like, if you stood, for example, where Talsa is, you Rule of Laud, you'd have everyone within your mastery.
Yeah.
Well, mostly everyone. I think Pad and Adelis up here might not be in your mastery.
Right. Okay.
So that's just smart movement of your abilities here that we can kind of go through. I die just to damage. I'm pretty sure I didn't have anything left. So yeah, I'm trying to heal myself. I already used meta. Breath is on cooldown here. I die.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure we lead into a lot more death here. Yeah. So, something I pointed out earlier today. Anyone with this dot right here, these guys are the ones that dropped the puddles, should not be soaking unless you have an immunity or a high mitigation. This plus the dot on the ground does so much damage that you are very likely to be at 20% as the last tick is happening, and you will die. The only time we really want that happening is if a healer is pulling off a just stupid cooldown. For example, Pad, Ysera right here are both doing, or even one of them are doing Tranquility, plus probably an Aura Mastery. That might be able to be enough to stay in. But that's really up to your healers. If you see that everyone's low, your healers are really struggling, you have this dot on you, you're probably dead. It is a heavy hitting dot. This is only on 10 man, so that's 3k per second. On, for example, we were 15, so that's probably doing 3.5, 4k a second, plus the puddle, which is doing at least, I'm going to say, well, I can see.
I think it was around like 2,500.
Yeah, about 2,500. I think that's fair. You're dead. That extra damage will kill you. Unless a healer is pumping into you, and they're too busy with tanks. Those tanks are getting hit.
Yeah, so there's definitely a change in the fight at that point where it's like, okay, we need everybody else to look after themselves. So the healers can pump tanks.
You can see this is when I'm moving during the fight and in order to get to this side. But you can see there's this giant hike that just stays huge over... That's 10 seconds. Roughly 10 seconds, all of a sudden my damage taken increases all the way up to 40k. I'm getting 40k every second. Roughly. Without healing. That's a lot of damage for a healer to heal through. Or sorry, that's about 5, so it's 6k every second. Multiply it out. Brain hurts. Plus an auto swing. Auto swings deal about, I'd say 25. So I'm probably taking about 30k a second right here. No, 30k every melee. And healers then have to heal us back up because it's roughly half our health bar because of Scorn stacks.
You should zoom in and click on resources.
That's pain.
Don't do that.
That's resources are a natural kill on this site.
Okay.
So you can see if I just look at melee, like there's a huge amount right here from just general damage. But yeah, so again, it's knowing these fights, knowing when you're gonna have to hit cooldowns. Actually, this is a good example on this. Where are you? I'm just gonna pull a Telsa. And I want to blur. So I already know, this is after Lust Window, he could have blurred all of this when this damage was coming out to the group. So you see this giant hike, this is when they're soaking seeds and whatnot, so you see Final Finesse. That could have been a blur timer right there to make sure he's taking less damage rather than inside of the Lust Window. Because at this point, he's already taking his damage. Like, he's maybe at 25%. Here, I'll check. 840. And you can do this with any cooldown or with any defensive. So at 840, he's already at half health. You're already not expending your defensive if you're already half health going back into the boss. So if I look through Final Finesse, I think this is the first Final Finesse cast, yeah. So Final Finesse is going off, everyone's taking their damage. This could be a good blur timer right here, making sure he's taking less damage than anyone else. I think Ash is actually in blur. No, he's not in blur either. But that's a 1 minute cooldown it's just wasted here. Similarly, if I look at damage taken, Ksenia, when are you hitting survival of the fittest? See, just same thing. It's toward the edge when we're already almost dying, when everyone's pretty much hitting the floor, and meanwhile right through here where healers might have been able to save a cooldown or something, we might have been able to save it just during this, actually during an early time. So knowing your class, knowing your abilities, knowing your defensives really help out healers and keep you on target. And then smart usage of your offensive CDs when you know you need them on ads or on boss or when lust is coming up, making sure all of your cooldowns are lining up is extremely important, especially on a fight like this where it's so DPS dependent. The last thing I want to go over is actually over parsing. So, yeah, these look really good. You know, some people are like, oh, you know, it's a problem. You know, I see a bunch of grays. It's just like, yeah, but we haven't seen the end of the fight. Something I encourage a lot of people do is wait on your parsing and instead look at where your damage is allocated. So if I look at carries, I can see, obviously, he's allocating correctly. He's on Denathrius. This is on Kobolus. This is on Denathrius during Lust Window. So he's hitting his cooldowns effectively. Ksenia, similar story, except for that dip right there. Adelis, obviously hitting his cooldowns correctly. So it's making sure you have every cooldown and every dot ticking correctly. So look at your uptime, look at where you're allocating. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full story from your parsing. Even as a healer, you're not going to get the full story from your parsing. Because again, as I showed earlier, there's this huge amount of just not allocated healing into the log, and in all reality, it is being allocated. It's absorbed.
So, could you go over specifically like any differences between like the DPS logs or healing logs that you're aware of?
Okay, so one of the main ones actually you'll see on Warcraft logs. It's something I hate when healers bring up on Warcraft logs. This is my personal pet peeve. I had to deal with it a lot when I was in Oaken on a bad healer because they didn't realize how it works in a team situation. Obviously, I've already pointed this out, but I'll re-point it out, is these are where your healing comes from. Divine Toll is huge for healing. Holy Avenger, huge for healing. Rule of Law, obviously that should probably be better, for especially when you're moving through mirrors and whatnot. It's helpful to hit Rule of Law to make sure that when you're hitting Holy Shocks and whatnot, it's hitting at full effectiveness. So that's something you could be doing a little bit better. But obviously, these numbers are always going to be lower. Our goal is not to pump your numbers. So we're going to do our own defensives. So you're going to have loss right here, especially you calling them out. Aura Mastery is never going to be at 100%. You're holding it off for whatever. You're holding it off for damage. You're holding it off for a big hit of damage that's about to come in on us. So whenever you're looking at a healing log, I always have to remind myself, like, hey, what does their actual healing look like? And if I look at your guys' healing on this, I'm fairly happy. I'm not, Ysera is just dealing with a little bit of a armor problem here. A little newer, but obviously hit 72 here. And you can see whenever you highlight it, kind of brings it up. So if I look at then when you guys are allocating, this is a big burst, this is a big burst, this is a big burst. There's another big burst. And then, big burst right here. Big burst right here of non-absorbed. Big burst right here. So all of you guys are hitting your cooldowns when you're supposed to. So as, for example, for you, Zane, it's your responsibility to make sure that these numbers fall in a reasonable spot. It doesn't matter that they're low, it just matters that they get used at an effective time. And for a healer, I don't care. Yeah.
For example, like what you just showed, like with those burst windows, if somebody has lower healing in a big damage done burst window, it would generally mean that they hadn't used a cooldown at that, and then I can go into the replay, look at that timing, and see what they cast, right? To see kind of what's in between.
Right, so right now I'm looking at everyone's healing right here. I see Pad has a giant spike right here, so I turned on raw healing here, so it shows the total healing during that. So all of a sudden, Pad's jumping up to 19, because this is when he's hitting Trank. I more than bet you if I look through the log, this is Trank.
Yeah.
Paladins are a little deceptive. I'll show you kind of a trick for them. It's a little rough. So Paladins I have to somewhat excuse, but for Druids, yeah, whenever you're seeing these big spikes, that's a cooldown.
Yeah.
So if you don't see a spike when you called a cooldown, there's a problem.
Gotcha. Okay.
For a Paladin, however, I believe... Where are you? So one thing you look at is shock barrier. This is when you have an additional barrier on us.
Yeah.
So this is counted as overhealing or absorbs. So that's not getting calculated correctly. The other big thing that's not getting calculated correctly, and I'll see if they still have it. Glimmer of Light, Rule of Law. No, they don't. Alright, we can go into here then. Let's see if they have it here. Resurrecting, no, so it doesn't have targeted. So some of our mitigation, if I'm looking through my mitigation, some of this mitigation is actually yours if you have Devotion Aura.
If I'd used Debo or Blessing or Sack or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Some of that is yours, so you always have to kind of look at the tanks and see, okay, well, how much damage did you guys take? It's like, all right, and then you see the mitigated number. You're like, all right, well, it's 50%, and then you go into them, and you're like, all right, well, where was those mitigated? It's like, well, there's a melee one, there's a Scorn. It's like, all right, well, what did you use? For something like Scorn, I don't believe you only have Ignore Pain for Scorn, I think. I'm trying to checking through. So I'll do Shield Wall.
Oh no.
And Spell Reflection. Nope. Okay.
My cooldowns because I'm too busy calling everybody else's.
Ignore Pain. So Ignore Pain is, I guess, going to be my best bet. So Ignore Pain, you can see that's where most of his mitigation. So his mitigation is right now at 19%. So you can see mitigated 19% of it with those abilities. And then I go over here, and you can see, well, it's at 17%. Well, that's kind of weird. It's a little different.
Oh, so
there's a missing 2%.
Gotcha. Okay, and then that would be like the ghost 2% that was mitigated by either a Sack or a Debo Aura.
Right.
Gotcha.
So there's missing numbers whenever you're looking at a tank mitigation, and that's because WoW Analyzer or WoW Logs does not show paladins like when their auras are taking over.
Yeah.
So some of our mitigation is yours. Some of the raw healing, obviously, is yours from beacon targets. So it's kind of a trick with paladins. Something that's useful is this eye level percentage right here. If you're in blue, you're usually pretty healthy.
Okay.
The only way to get that I know of to get like high purples and high like oranges is actually to go Light of the Martyr build, and you Light of the Martyr and then heal yourself.
Yeah, and that's fucking bullshit.
It doesn't
hit,
work.
Like, I've hit those higher ones on like Lady, or not Lady, the girl that has the 4 canisters or whatever.
Yeah, lady.
Under-
Lady
Yeah,
Nerva
Dark
Dark
Oh
Lady
yeah,
Nerva.
okay, yeah, I was right.
All right. We just don't.
Yeah.
No one's ever called her that before. But
Yeah, hey lady.
that's a name for her.
Yeah. So that's all Light of the Martyr. We had a paladin that did Light of the Martyr. The problem with Light of the Martyr builds is you put yourself at such a risk, and you as a healer, you cannot put yourself at that risk. We need you alive.
Yeah. Like
And-
I've read stuff on Light of the Martyr, and it's basically anything. They're like, you shouldn't use it, but if you really need to, you should be using Divine Protection, the minute cooldown, or your bubble or something, so that you aren't killing yourself to save somebody else, kind of thing.
Right. The only
Unless you want
time,
to parse well,
Yeah,
in which
unless-
case you should be using it all the time.
well,
Yeah,
in which case you're
exactly.
wrong and you should be kicked because
Yeah.
if you're Light of the
and
Martyring,
didn't Warcraft
get out.
logs just recently, like the last 48 hours, they're now marking logs, DPS logs that got PI.
I was actually going to
Right.
point that out today, right now.
Yeah. They did that for
So-
PI and something else.
I'm
Which is
looking-
huge.
Looking at
Yeah.
Boomy's
Yeah,
Sire
Innervate.
Denathrius, you can
Oh,
see
Innervate, yeah.
But it's
Is
not
that-
retroactive.
Nope.
Right, so it's just going forward,
The new
which makes
ones.
sense. That's too much work to go back and reflag that shit, but
Apparently, he's debating whether or not he wants to actually run a global recrawl.
I'd imagine it's a
That's a
ton of
lot,
processing
yeah.
time, right? Like that's a lot
Yeah.
of data to churn through
Yeah, so
for minimal
If
benefit.
I were him, I would honestly run it through the top like 1,000 or maybe 10,000.
Yeah, you
Well-
could just do people's what do they call it? The
oh, that's the last thing I
DPS.
wanted.
What's that called? What's the
All stars.
All Stars? Yeah, just run it through the All Stars, right? Like just. Although I'm
That
sure
would
the
be. I
the
think
thing
the
about
best
doing that is they're
compromise.
all gonna get flagged, right?
Yeah, they're all gonna.
Except for like the few, like did you see the survival hunter that killed? He parsed number. There's 2 survival hunters that have killed Sire Denathrius, and they parsed. They're the second highest DPS in the entire fucking game right now on on Stone Legion.
That's funny.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to make sure I hit on, because I was asked about it, is actually your guys' soul binds and talents. Something you'll want to do throughout this going on, especially as we're working on a boss, is making sure when you're looking at our logs, especially logs of other people, it's like, all right, what are they running? So, for example, I brought up Atku here. So you can see Naya's Poison, Grove Invigoration, all this stuff. Well, if I go over here, you can see instead this guy's running Naya's Burrs. It's like, alright, well that's a little bit weird, he's forced to go the defensive tree. Well, if you actually look at his damage, if you actually look at his
Fucking
damage, that Burr is
Burr.
doing
Broken
4% of his
fuck.
damage.
It's so
Holy
busted.
shit! What the fuck?
Burrs makes
there's
up
a handful
4
of
to
passes that are super
7%.
broken like that.
Yeah, makes up 4 to 7% of your damage. If you're not running Burrs, and you can get Burrs, usually that's your highest damage.
Is that just because, like, I don't know how it works, but like the spell, is that because like it does? Oh, okay. Oh, because so much damage is going out.
It's a lot of attack power.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just the way it's
I
just
will
the way
say-
it's tuned.
Unless
There's a
you
hand-
have 2 broken potency conduits, it's BIS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most classes, again, like you said, there's a handful that have 2. Most classes have a really good potency conduit, which you are always running, and then a second potency conduit, which frequently gets outclassed by stuff like Burrs. And there's one for the Venthyr that frequently, those that run the Venthyr talent, I can't think of it right now. Thrill Seeker, maybe?
Yeah, Thrill Seeker is.
Thrill Seeker's the other
also
one, I think. That's like so usually it's like always run your best, and then check if your second best is actually
better
than
burrs.
the alternative, which usually
Mythic
comes
Trap.
with the benefit. Think about burrs. If you go burrs, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an endurance conduit you get as well.
Yep.
So like
it's
you get to
endurance.
be tankier and
And do more
more
damage.
durable
Well,
in
you can
addition to
see-
doing more damage.
Yeah, you can see this guy's actually running Resilience of the Hunter, so he feign deaths and takes 3% reduced damage. That's actually fairly large, especially when you're talking about soaking things, having to worry about smash, a lot of extra damage. Like that 3% can be a lot of mitigation.
And that's kind of like the greater fade thing for priests too, right? They fade and take less damage.
100%.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone to pretty much, if you see a log, I usually don't look at the top logs. What I like to do is I'll instead
Where
go
did-
look at the.
Hold on, how did you get to this page?
Okay, I can actually explain that. So
Yeah, show them that. And have you shown them the Mythic Trap?
Oh,
Not
it's the
Mythic Trap,
rankings. Okay.
Sub Creation? Because Sub Creation has that too for both, not only Mythic Plus, but also for Castle Nathria.
yeah, but it also shows like the top 100, and I don't like that. So the reason I do this, I'll show you, is I go to Heroic. I'll go to, for example, my example is Hunter. So Hunter, Beast Mastery. So blah, 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 and then it shows all the best builds. Well, the problem is, obviously we're not going to be running best trinkets. These guys are all running, Mid-Dread Fire Vessel and fucking Hateful Chain, and they're probably stacking Heraldry. It's like, yeah, that's really nice, but not realistic for like our type of group. So it's like, all right, that's nice. So we go, Winnows was the one I went into. So you can see, Soulforge Embers. He's running semi-good trinkets here. So it's just like, all right, that's going to be a decent look. I can then go into him. I can go into his summary. And now I can see all of the talents he's running, all of his soulbinds, and whatever gear he has on his character. And what Fever brought up, I'll actually go and bring that up. I think it's in this one. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Sub-creation is what Fever was referring to. So this is sub-creation. I clicked on Castle Nathria, Denathrius. Don't be bothered by the tier lists. This is just for top-end players. Go to, again, Beast Mastery. And you can see there's their conduits they're running. There's their soulbinds.
And it's counting. This is only looking at Mythic.
Yeah.
Which is so this is more useful for earlier in the instance to get an idea of what people are doing, because not a whole lot of Beastmaster hunters have killed Sidon and Nathrius on Mythic yet. So you don't get a huge variety. In fact, I think it's just one single person.
In fact, this guy is actually wrong because he's running Nia's Poison. So comparatively to what you should be running, this guy's actually wrong. This is more than likely a carry. This is very likely a guy that paid for a run.
Which makes sense because no one that's killed Sidon and Nathrius. I forgot that Sub-creation only looks at Mythic.
Mythic.
You can't look at Heroic.
Right, which is a problem.
If you play a super popular spec, though, it still works just fine.
Yeah, so again,
that's true.
I always suggest going to Warcraft logs. If you need additional help afterwards, let me know. I'll do the best I can, making sure that people kind of understand how to go through the logs themselves, so that way you can go through your own logs and be like, oh, this is what I'm doing wrong, and not have to wait for example, a response from like Fever or Under or someone else that was in the raid that's just like, no, this is actually what happened. So that kind of sums up everything that I wanted to go over today. Does anyone have, before I let us all go, does anyone have any additional questions or anything additional you want me to go over?
I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, seriously, this is like super cool. There's a bunch of shit that I didn't even know.
Yeah, I go out to this thing, but you definitely pointed out a bunch of stuff that I didn't realize how it got tied together.
I'd encourage people too to like just go look at this Wipe 13 on our Heroic logs and click through the whole, like just play around. What happens when I click this button and click this button and see, I'm looking at healing for myself and how did I do on X, Y, or Z, and you can you just learn a lot by playing around and just seeing, clicking on and off the different buffs at the top and looking at the graphs and seeing the charts. And
I'll look at one where I was alive.
My suggestion for you, for example, would be, I think Wipe 16 On our Wednesday, get rid of me. Yeah, wipe 16,
thing.
you were up for 8 minutes.
So the ignore events after player deaths tool is also very. I don't know if you talked about that earlier.
I hate using it personally. I almost never use it, which is why I didn't bring it up. But yeah, you can set it to a certain
time.
death.
I set that to like
example,
6.
If I put it
so
to
basically,
4.
it ignores the. I always set it kind of high because we usually go We'll go a while with people that are dead, right? So if you set it to like 7, for example.
Yeah, and if I
That just
put
means it
7,
won't include
all of a
people
sudden it
taking
includes
damage.
this.
And so it
After
ignores
wipe
basically
call.
I call it to wipe. So if you died, if you did something stupid, if you stood in the fire, like it ignores that because you were probably doing that on purpose because we'd called the wipe at the very end. It can be somewhat helpful for looking through stuff like death logs.
Oh yeah.
And times you got hit by an avoidable mechanic, and it's like, I never get hit by that. And it's like, well, you might have been standing in on purpose because I called for a wipe. So just knowing that that's there, again, it can be powerful to see because we're all clustered at the end there when I'm like, all right, everybody die.
I personally look at
this. Weed out the fact that Norn's alive for 2 minutes after the call a wipe. So
yeah, absolutely. How many cheap deaths did he proc despite not having the trinket still?
Exactly.
I mean, yeah. If I'm looking at, for example, 16, which is the one I suggested for Adku, and I can look. Okay, Adku, you died 8 minutes in. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know you have 6 people behind you. So all of a sudden, you were the 6th player. So if I put it 5, I'm looking for your deaths exactly. Okay, so you were the 7th person down. So if I put it to 7, now it's only going to count up to when you died. So
now you can sit there and look at your damage done, look at your damage taken during that time, look at your healing done
your true bars.
During the time you were alive. So it doesn't take into account the time you're, watching the floor.
Yeah, there's your true bars. It's actually a 26:47 while you were alive.
Not great, but
we can kill Cybernatheus with everybody parsing a 47.
Yeah, Zane here was doing a 76:90 on healing before you died. I was doing a 68:99. Pad was doing a 65:60 on healing.
You see that? Look at that.
Hell yeah, 8.
Solid tanking right there, folks.
What a goddamn.
So yeah, you can use this to kind of like, all right, when did I die? Was I the 7th person dead? Oh yeah, I'm the 7th person dead. So I'll mark it at 7. It'll stop when I die, and I can see exactly how much damage I was doing.
Got it. Okay.
I don't usually use that tool, but yeah.
Go play with it. It can be helpful. I discovered and was encouraged and used it ever since when I was looking at people getting hit by the roly-polies during Hive Mind.
God, that was the tool I used when you guys were getting hit by roly-polies.
Yeah, because it's like clearly we're not getting, like, I never get hit by any, and I'd look at my logs and I'm like, I'm getting hit by 3? Like, man, when am I getting hit by? And it's like, oh, I'm getting hit at the very end. So it can be helpful for that. But you also lose a lot if you do that filter and it drops off at the 5:15 mark. Like you're missing a whole chunk of the fight. So you want to, even again, sometimes we've done that, right? Where I've said, okay, we're down a whole bunch of people. Clearly, we're not going to get the kill, but I want to get practice. We're in phase 3. Let's get some practice with movement.
It's also good for. And this is a less happy scenario, but like say you have a player who died early and you want to see if he was just taking a lot of damage or if he's doing something, you can set it to go ignore events after he died and see if he was taking more damage than the rest of the people at that time. Because obviously if he died early, it's going to be lower on the damage taken.
Right.
Yeah. But if you set it to ignore events after they died, then you can see relatively at that time who was taking what damage.
And click on the effective healing received per second, ERHPS.
Yeah.
You can watch you and I even out. That's what's always fun. Like, because it always looks like the demon hunter's taking a shitload more damage than I am. But I assure you, I'm really shitty at what I do when I'm tanking and raid leading.
So you do fine, Fever.
I do fine raid leading. I don't tank for shit though.
Does this do the same thing as WoW Analyzer where it shows the cooldowns that you had available for deaths, or do you have to go to WoW Analyzer for that?
That's
a WoW Analyzer.
That's a WoW Analyzer thing.
Or you could find that information in Warcraft logs.
It's a lot easier here in WoW Analyzer. Yeah.
In Warcraft logs, you'd have to look for either casts and see the last time you used that cooldown and find and then do the math and be like, shit, I could have used it here, and they clearly, and
there you go.
Really map that out.
This is your Bestial Wrath, for example.
So you can see places you could have, but again, you have to do the math on it. And the problem with stuff like Bestial Wrath, where Bestial Wrath is reduced, right, by like as you do things.
Yeah.
Right. So like it's not, you'd have to look at something
I sure as hell shouldn't be spending a minute in between Bestial Wrath casts.
This is actually due to falling down the hole. You're waiting for ads to come out.
Oh, okay.
I know what this is.
There's stuff like that. So it's again, that's why it's not as good as WoW Analyzer. If WoW Analyzer can tell you like, you kept it on cooldown 6 out of 45 times, you can sit there and think back and be like, all right, there were definitely 6 times where I was sitting on cooldowns on purpose because of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. So hey, go back real quick to that where you were.
All right.
So am I hitting kill command as often as I should? Because this is where it's almost all the way up the top. That's kill shot.
Oh, kill command.
Yeah, because
there you are.
Second, yeah.
No.
Okay, so I had a couple of drop offs.
Here. Looks like here you missed a few.
Okay. But this is where I would go to WoW Analyzer and it would say, hey, you did like 30 of 80. But now I understand that was only on the boss, not on the Kabbalist and other stuff like that.
Right, it's only going to ever count on boss.
Yeah. So I need to be looking at this.
Right, because you can see you didn't actually miss some of those casts. It's just it was used on something else. So if I go to...
Oh, this is showing it on Denathrius. Okay.
Yeah, if I go to Kobolist, like, that's not going to be counted anywhere on the boss. These aren't counted on the boss. So This is all technically missed casts for WoW Analyzer.
Got it.
Including, if I go over to, Echo of Sin. Oh, you didn't use any on Echo of Sin. You really shouldn't, so I'm kind of glad I didn't see that. But yeah. You should be using Bestial Cleave.
Yes. Yeah, I did start doing that a little later on. Okay, cool.
Now, one thing you can do with this information is you can now see, you said kill command was something you need to be using a lot more. You can now see that and go make a weak core to help you remember to do that until you get back into the rhythm of using it when you should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go to, click on his, go to casts and look at kill command. Just click on kill command and just filter by just that. So there's
true kill command.
Yeah, and so that 2-minute gap is where we're falling. I'm sure.
Right here.
The other one, I don't know what that is though.
Yeah, right here is a problem. You can see this is when you were hitting it pretty actively. You're missing one here. You're missing one here. You're missing at least one to two here. Missing at least one here.
Who's that guy that's like super known for doing his like really good weak aura setup? It's like
Luxthos.
Yeah, Luxthos.
Yeah, I use his.
I
encourage people to, and I'm happy. I should share. So I'll share.
Yeah, even him. You're missing one here. Missing one here.
Let me go to my hunter. And I'll share my.
Missing one here.
My screen with you, Echo. I've actually talked to you about this before about like how I think.
And then you would have to go to replay to see if maybe that was when we were running through.
Right.
The window, right? Because that may be why I missed that one.
Well, the thing about the kill command is you can use it while turned away.
Well,
the only time you need to be looking at the only time that might be a problem is when your pets are running the other side of the room.
That's still valuable information to know. If, for example, if those gaps are happening when we are going through the mirror, then okay, mental note.
Hit it while we're going
through the mirror.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hit it so it's on cooldown, and then I go back through the mirror and it should be off cooldown. I can hit it again.
Awesome. Yeah. No, this is great.
So you can see,
Yeah.
even like on your Shadowgrass totem here, you hit it 2 times, or you say hit it 4 times, 2 minutes, so you know within this 8-minute window, you're actually maximizing your Shadowgrass totem. So you can kind of do your quick math on some like trinkets and stuff like that, just to make sure you're hitting it when you should. So it's all these little things that kind of help out overall damage.
Yeah. This is sick, dude. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you doing this.
Yeah,
man.
I do too. This will help me be able to dig into these deeper and understand where to go with them.
So I'm gonna real quick stop my recording here. I'm gonna kind of go over the last bit. The purpose of tonight was solely to make sure that people could go through their own logs and be able to do it on their time to make sure, hey, this is my damage, this is my tankiness, this is my where are all my stuff lining up? Am I lining up properly with the boss and the ads, or am I not? Hopefully this has helped. I hope to see a little bit of improvement on the boss, obviously, now that we all kind of have better information and better place to find this information. Thank you.